don't see the recording.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
There we go. Awesome. So I'll restate that then. Thank you everyone for attending January 27th, 2022 City of Bend Accessibility Advisory Committee. We will call the meeting to order here at 1:04 p.m. and we'll go through and do some roll calls and introductions. My name is Nicholas Radin. I'm the chair of COBAAC, and then I'll turn it over to Ashley Money.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Money, a COBAAC member and Strategic Programs and Partnerships Coordinator for Cascades East Transit.
And we'll go to Ashley Schaefer.
Hello, Ashley Schaefer, COBAAC member, also owner of Empowering Access Disability Consulting.
All right, and we'll turn it over to David.
Sorry, slow on the draw there. This is Dave Blaukamp. I'm standing in my work trailer. Apologies. COBAAC member and owner of All Access Home Design.
Thank you. We'll go to Jeff Lichtenberg. Will be a little bit late if he's able to attend. We'll pass to Kelsey.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelsey Freeman, COBAAC member and Native American College Prep Program Coordinator at Central Oregon Community College.
Thank you. And then Corey, on to you.
I'm Corey Sparks. I'm COBAAC member, and I do operations and grants at Central Oregon Land Watch.
Thank you. And then Frank Shirley will not be in attendance today. And so we'll just go ahead and get started. Item number 2 on our agenda is land acknowledgement, and I will turn it over to Sharissa.
Thanks, Nick. I recognize this is a new agenda item for COBAAC meetings, so I want to give a little bit of background. The land acknowledgement statement that I will read in just a minute is shared during city council meetings, as well as meetings of commissions and committees supported by city council, such as the Human Rights and Equity Commission. Moving forward, the land acknowledgement will be included in all COBAAC meeting agendas, both to more closely align COBAAC meetings with those of councils and council committee advisory groups, and to acknowledge the intersectionality of the work that COBAAC and the city's new diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility department will be doing. So with that said, it's my privilege to share the land acknowledgement offered to the City Council by the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs. We would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land known as Bend, Oregon, north of the Columbia River, is the original homeland of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. The Confederated Tribes ceded this land in the Treaty of 1855 while retaining regular and customary hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. The Wanalama, Wasco, and Northern Paiute people inhabited this area in certain seasonal times that clearly established their presence. It's also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celilo Falls trading grounds. This trade route expanded the impact of commerce between tribal nations. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. It's our hope that guests continue to honor and care for this land. Thank you. Nick, I think you may still be muted.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sharissa. Yeah, it looks like we have a member of the public with their hand raised, and we'll get to that here in a second after we go through our item number 3, which is approval of the minutes from December 7th, 2021. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll motion to approve them. This is Kelsey.
Thank you.
This is
would
Corey.
Moni.
I'll second. Oh,
Okay.
You go ahead, Corey.
okay, I'll second. You get the next motion.
Awesome. And then we'll take a vote for approval of the rest of the committee. All those in favor of approving minutes, say aye. Or raise your hand. All those opposed to the minutes? Okay. Any abstain? All right, minutes have been approved for December 7th COBAAC meeting. Awesome, and then so we'll go to the public comment. It looks like Amanda Hammer, you've got your hand raised.
Is she able to?
Is there anything in the
There you
chat section? Oh,
Amanda, are you
section.
there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you know what's so funny? I did not raise my hand. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, okay.
So you just continue on, and I'm listening gratefully.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah.
All right, so this moment here too, we also have a few minutes for public comment. Anybody else on the panel or our city officials here today need to make any public comments? Okay, then we'll move on to regular COBAAC business. Item number 5 on the agenda. We'll start with the chair update. And so we've had a vice chair vacancy for the last few months, and we wanted to reach out to the group today to ask if there's any vice chair volunteers. And if it makes sense, we can think about that for the next meeting. But if there are any volunteers, we can get that appointed today or wait till the next month. All righty. Then we will move on to our Winter Access Award nomination reminder, and I'll turn that over to Lisa.
Okay, for the Winter Access Award, the intent is to publicly acknowledge businesses in the city of Bend that show adherence to the snow removal guidelines set by the city. You guys are, when it snows, to take pictures of the businesses you'd like to recognize for best snow removal. You can nominate one or more, doesn't matter. You must have all pictures and business information emailed to us by April 15th. COBAAC will discuss the nominations at the April meeting and extend invitations to no more than 4 awardees at the May meeting to present them with their certificate and whatnot. So, and that's it for that.
Okay. And then we'll move on to the next item here, which is also you as well, Lisa, in regards to the memberships.
Okay, yeah. We are sad to say that Kelsey has put in her resignation, and so has Frank. Frank is moving, and Kelsey is going back to school. I like to thank them both. You guys unfortunately started when COVID was around, and I realized today it's like I haven't even met these guys in person, so it's like, oh, that's sad. So unfortunately, I mean, I wish I could have, but I'd like to thank you guys. Both of you have been here, and you both approved the letter of support for the city's grant application for the for the Drake footbridge. And I mean, it really helps when you guys are, supportive of, the city for, with support letters and whatnot. We appreciate your time. And Kelsey, I really appreciate your attendance and you always acknowledging, the fact when you were able to make it or not. It really helps with a lot of things, a lot of factors. But I appreciate you being able to take out the time and all the effort that you've put into the accessibility department. We are going to miss you, but you got to do what you got to do. So, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I mean, I really have enjoyed being part of COBAAC. I'm excited for this new phase and to see where things go. Just need to, I'm going back to school in the fall for public policy, and then need to focus more on wrapping things up with my work this spring, and then I'm doing some writing this spring. So just wish I feel like I can't give COBAAC the full time I want this spring. And if I'm moving shortly anyway. But excited for you all and excited to see where things go.
Thanks, Kelsey. I agree with everything Lisa said, and also we will miss you, but I'm very excited for you and all the wonderful things that you've got, coming down the pipe.
You have one book right now, right, Kelsey?
Yeah, I have a book out about immigration called No Option But North, and now I'm writing more about immigration and climate change. So that's my next project.
I'll say ditto. Kelsey, thank you so much. And ditto to, we haven't even been able to meet in person. And, so just thank you so much. And ditto, so exciting. Congratulations. It really does sound like exciting adventures you're on. So thanks so much for giving us some of your super busy time, some of your precious time. We really appreciate your service, Kelsey.
Yeah, thank you as well, Kelsey. And I'm excited for your next journey here coming up too. So that's we'll miss you, but we're excited for that next step. So. And then Frank also passed along his regrets to the commission, saying that he's enjoyed serving on the commission and the people on the COBAAC are very dedicated, and he wishes them continued success in the work they are doing. So I just wanted to pass that along as well.
Thanks, Nick.
Anything else, Lisa or Sharissa, on the membership portion?
I think, Lisa, we were going to talk just a little bit about second terms for some folks.
Oh, yeah, for some reason. Yeah, we actually have 2 that expire this month. And we would like to ask or extend a second 3-year term. It's been 3 years, wow. To Ashley Schaefer and Dave Blaukamp. We'd like to know if you'd like to serve a second term.
Yeah, I think I would. I like where things are going. But I also I might be moving too, but being kind of part-time in Bend. So I don't know if that changes anything. If I will still be here sometime. But yeah, I'm down.
For now, yes. Great.
I am actually not probably going to be able to run for to do another term. I know you guys are really down on numbers right now. So if, I'm totally willing to stay on until you can kind of get more members up so you can keep conducting business and all, but I'm probably going to have to step away once that happens.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I appreciate your honesty instead of trying to, tag along and then like, oh, no, I can't do it. So thank you for that.
Sure. So like I said, I know whenever you get some new members on stuff, I'll probably just kind of step away at that point, but happy to keep going.
Okay. Sarisa will probably give more information on that a little bit later. So,
okay.
All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David and Ashley, for those updates. Anything else, Charisse or Lisa, regarding membership at this time?
Yeah, so maybe related to Dave's thoughts about filling some of the vacancies. If you want, we could take a little bit of time, Nick, and talk about the interviews. Do you want to kind of lead out on that, and then I can follow up with some details?
Sure, that sounds great. Yeah, so last week we held a series of interviews for some of the vacancies on COBAAC, and we've made those interviews included myself, Charissa, Lisa, Anna, who's the director of the DEIA, and we also had council member Barb Campbell as part of those as well. And so we made our recommendations based upon those meetings and who we thought would be a great fit for the committee. And we made those recommendations to the city manager, Eric King. And those are in that next steps.
So to follow up on that, Eric has been made aware of the slate of candidates that the interview panel is recommending. And Lisa and I are currently working through next steps in terms of notifying the folks who have been selected or approved for appointment to COBAAC. That being said, there are a couple of procedural things I wanted to make the committee aware of. The way the charter read, we could only do appointments in April, and then we needed to make sure we posted vacancy notices in February. So Eric has graciously agreed to allow us to temporarily suspend those requirements pending feedback from COBAAC on maybe a fuller review of the charter to allow us some flexibility to move forward with those appointments. So we are suspending again those rules around when folks can be appointed. We're also going to be suspending the rules around quorum. Currently, the charter indicates that a quorum consists of a majority of the voting members. We're going to shift that to a majority of the members present. And then we're also, and this is relevant to the vice chair inquiry earlier, we're also going to suspend the rules around when votes for the chair and vice chair can happen, and instead allow flexibility to fill those positions as they come available. So wanted to give the committee a heads up about those temporary suspensions, but then also let you know that Lisa and I will be coming back to COBAAC in the very near future to start a discussion around a deeper dive on the COBAAC charter and if these temporary suspensions should be made permanent. Are there other components of the charter that need to be revisited? Again, to make sure that COBAAC continues to function and be able to provide feedback to the city in a timely way. So I don't know, Dave, in light of that update, if that means anything for you, but I do anticipate that we will have the folks that Eric has agreed to appoint at the meeting starting next month.
And
okay.
I have a quick, Ashley Money here. I have a quick question. So Nick, I know that we just discussed and we had like an awkward pause, discussing the vice chair. And really there's not many of us on the call right now, especially knowing that Kelsey is going to be leaving and Dave wants to step away. Would it be possible? I know we need a vice chair, soon, but could we table the conversation until we get some of these new folks on board to kind of gauge their interest and also their capacity to perhaps participate in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was alluding to with the February. So that makes sense, and seeing who's available and how that works and how the membership shakes out here in the next few weeks.
And for what it's worth, to everybody, it is like a really fun little position. If anybody is like maybe thinking about it, and which I guess would basically only be Ashley Loney. I'm like so tempted to do it again. I don't know if I'm allowed, but it's I'm trying really hard not to for capacity because my seizures have been a little more active lately. So I'm trying to not volunteer for extra things when possible. But you know, who knows how everyone will feel next month. So that's just saying the vice chair is a pretty fun and easy position to hold. But yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Okay. Any more on that, on the membership stuff, Teresa, at this time?
I didn't have any more, just wanted to open it up if anybody had questions about the temporary suspension modifications of those sections of the charter. All right, that's it from me, Nick.
Okay. All right, our next agenda item is talking about COBAAC and the future of DEIA in the city of Bend with COBAAC. And so I will turn this over to Anna and Teresa to discuss this and go through this brainstorming exercise, I'll call it.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everybody. Again, Anna Allen, a she, her pronouns. I'm the Equity and Inclusion Director with the city, and it's good to see you all again. So yeah, I'll just speak kind of from a high level perspective about our department's goals, and I'll turn it over to Teresa to talk more about what her vision is for this group and for our department's approach to weaving accessibility practices, excuse me, into all things at the city. So, I mean, we just had recently had our department retreat, a first retreat, where we were kind of throwing out everything that everybody has on their different portfolios of work and talking about kind of the need for, you know, in addition to kind of supporting equity-driven initiatives and programs within the city, I think our vision for this organization is to kind of redeploy services and priorities through an equity lens. So looking at the services that we already provide, how do we weave in equity into that? So our goal is to establish a clear shared understanding and definition of equity across the organization. Because I think, right, that's step one, is do we all understand the goal that we have and the values and the vision of this organization, and what does equity mean? And what are our values as an organization around that? Because ultimately those values help us make those decisions. So, and that, you know, very much centers the experience of individuals with diverse abilities, as well as racial justice, gender identity justice, socioeconomic justice. So really thinking about that DEIA and how do we talk about equity while including all of those and weaving it in as a regular practice across departments, across different leadership levels, of knowing and feeling prepared to already ask really difficult questions early on in the process, like who's not here? Who should we be considering? Is the information that we're sharing accessible? Are we thinking about the impacts that this project is going to have on all communities? And really taking the time and being okay with pushing a little bit of a pause button to step in and to solicit some feedback from community members, to partner with groups like COBAAC and the Human Rights and Equity Commission to gain that feedback in that direction and apply it, and then come back with what the outcome was. So looking forward, I'm hoping to create opportunities for COBAAC and for the Human Rights and Equity Commission to build relationships together and have some awareness of what each other's priorities and work includes, because I don't want there to be continued siloing when we think about, again, racial justice and socioeconomic justice and accessibility justice, and the community, those communities all have a shared experience in some way, and all also have very different experiences in a lot of ways. So I'm thinking about kind of how do we weave in that intersectionality into our work as an organization, and how do we deliver services from a department standpoint, an equity department standpoint, that is not just going to meet the needs, but is truly inclusive of folks. And how do we partner with you all along that way that feels best for you, and actually feels and is meaningful to you all. So I'm very much interested in hearing directly from this group. What do you think is a meaningful way for us to include your feedback, your opinions, your experiences, your strengths, and what does success look like? So I think I'm hopeful in the near future that we can continue that conversation. Maybe it's carving out some time on every agenda, to really talk about, to check in about that. Maybe it's a regular assessment, but I really want to leave that up to this group and to Sharisa and to Lisa. So I think over this next year, we can work together to spot those opportunities, and to strengthen communication and weave the work of this group more deeply into decision-making practices of the city. So that's kind of my hope and my large high-level vision. But I want to leave some time for Sharisa to narrow down a little bit with what she's doing, and then also to hear from you all. So I will pause there.
Maybe before I start sharing my thoughts, does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. So I think my vision for drilling down to accessibility work is very much in line with what Anna has outlined. I think that disability is a complex experience, and that intersectionality is really important. So I'm really excited to work with Anna to see and learn more about how COBAAC and HREC might be able to partner together, because it is a holistic experience. When we talk about DEIA or maybe just more simply equity, I think there are some, though they're different, they're shared experiences. And shared, interest in making sure that communities are accessible and inclusive for everybody, regardless of the way that they experience the world. So I want to first say, I think that's a vision that I've had and I had coming into this role. And I think one, certainly as I've met with most of you all over the last couple of weeks to learn more about the experiences that you've had serving on COBAAC, that I think has really resonated with me. So in terms of my vision for accessibility broadly in this role, and certainly I'm open to feedback and would love direction from this group if I need to modify this vision. But I'm really interested in doing exactly what Anna outlined, shifting organizational priorities, processes, and systems to make it easier for all of the folks inside of the city organization to make things accessible for people with disabilities. I very much hear from city staff that we want to do the right thing. It's just not always clear how to do that. And so I'm very interested in supporting city staff with the resources to be able to be successful in accomplishing that. So I want to identify the areas where we know there are accessibility opportunities. Certainly we've talked about some of those here in COBAAC. So for example, are there resources or trainings that we can provide for city staff or other internal stakeholders around electronic, web, or document accessibility? And in this COVID world, that has been incredibly important. So maybe there are some things that we can do to address those known accessibility opportunities. And then I think the part where COBAAC is going to be especially critical is helping us identify those accessibility opportunities that we don't know about yet. So part of my vision is creating a space where COBAAC members or other members of the disability community feel comfortable sharing, that feedback on those issues. So in terms of my vision about COBAAC specifically, right? I want to elevate awareness of the work that y'all are doing. It's really important work, and I think aligns really nicely with the work that HREC is doing in a lot of important ways. So I want COBAAC members to feel engaged and supported in doing that work. It can be really hard. Y'all know that, right? When we talk about time commitments. So I want COBAAC members to feel supported, and part of my vision is creating a place where folks feel like they have the support to be able to meet that capacity need for full participation on COBAAC. You know, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is there may be a need for all of us to get clear on what that participation might look like. Sometimes that's going to mean that we have an opportunity to take in information from other folks, but sometimes that's also going to mean we are the drivers of providing that information to stakeholders. You know, so it's going to be, you know, navigating what does that look like moving forward in that larger vision of elevating the exposure that COBAAC has. So I think that's what I'll say in terms of my vision, but I really want to have kind of that brainstorming that Nick mentioned earlier. So I have a couple of probing questions that I hope y'all will engage Anna and I with. So what does success look like for you in terms of your participation on COBAAC?
And I don't think this has to be like answered right now if folks have feedback, but also just know that this is an ongoing question that our door is always open for too.
Sure, and I think Anna mentioned this one as well, but how do you want your time spent when you're coming to COBAAC meetings? And again, if you've got thoughts, great. If not, we can take that feedback later. And then how do you want to elevate recommendations that COBAAC makes to Eric or to the city council? How do we want to navigate that process? And then a couple of other questions as I was talking with Nick to prep for this meeting that we kind of thought about is, you know, do we create goals? Do we need to create subcommittees to meet those goals? And what are the goals that folks have in terms of their participation on COBAAC? So a couple of questions that I think might help. Again, Anna and I have some direction from this group. So with that, I will leave it open for Q&A and further discussion about kind of the visions that Anna and I have outlined.
I think, you know, what you and I had talked about quite a bit, Ms. Ashley Schaefer, is that, you know, I would like my time on COBAAC to be meaningful, to be more than kind of a box checked, to really acknowledge the equity part, and that, you know, that I think I've kind of struggled with that idea of adding on an A to DEI, because I think already within the social justice world, disability is heavily left out. And I think when we look at it as just accessibility, which is very much the physical part, I think it can be easy for people, especially people that don't understand DEI, to recognize and acknowledge that disability is just as much a part of, you know, equity and inclusion and all of that, and affected by all of it, than any other group, you know, out there. And so that it's just something I've kind of wrestled with on my own, that like, if making that delineation kind of separates or helps, I go back and forth. And so I think I want to make sure that when we're talking with people within the city, that it's very clear that it's not a separate thing, that, you know, that there's a lot of different aspects to what equity within disability is, and that, you know, and maybe we do need to define really like what, you know, like you said, the goals and everything. And are we strictly talking about, you know, accessibility, the physical accessibility of the city? Or are we talking about, you know, on all levels, like what does hiring look like within the city to make it equitable for disabilities, that kind of stuff. And so maybe some clarification there, because it definitely, you know, I think is a lot deeper than it can seem.
Thank you for that feedback, Ashley.
Ashley Moni here. I would also add that, and Teresa, I just wanted to thank you. It was so great to get to talk to you. I won't speak for everybody on the committee, but I know that, it felt really great just to have you reach out and ask me, what I thought about the role that COBAAC can play. And so just you doing that, like, thank you. It was really great to think about this. And, this is a really kind of transformational opportunity for us as a committee to think about what we want to be. And I think, Ashley Schaefer said in the last meeting, we don't want to be a rubber stamp or like a checkbox, right? Like we want to do something neat. And this meeting, you said we want to do something meaningful. And I think a lot of the time, at least since I've been serving on the committee, the way that we've been leveraged has been, there's a project, there's like a big project, and we get brought in to basically say, does this work or not? And I know oftentimes that's been pretty challenging because, when you get so far along in a project, there really isn't a ton of flexibility, for the project to be reworked if there are issues. And so I think, I know that this is something ongoing, and Teresa, even when we talked about this, I didn't have a solution, and I still don't have a solution, but I do think that including COBAAC and kind of the beginning stages of some of those projects, just so that it's on our radar and so that we understand what's going on, could be super helpful. And then creating a channel where then there's a follow-up, when they're 30%, along in the project, so that there are ways that we can really impact that project. We have the true opportunity to do that, as opposed to just being looped in at the tail end of a process.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Ashley.
Hi, Corey Sparks here. I think that all of those dreams sound fantastic, and I would love to see them realized. Some of the feedback that I would have, obviously this stuff is really, really hard, and it requires, a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of like collaborative, just digging in together and making mistakes, and just all kinds of like deeper participation than you can do really in one and a half hours once a month, and in such a way that it's not necessarily like COBAAC would be part of what whatever group or focus group or whatever around, we would just I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm trying to say with that, but for that sort of dream to be realized, it would take more than just COBAAC, and it seems like people would need to be paid for it, obviously, and that's a capacity thing. I barely have capacity at this moment for anything. I love COBAAC very much. So I'm here for sure. But, for that kind of deep participation and like come to all these meetings around this project at all of these stages and like give input, like that's a lot to ask of somebody, especially disabled people who might have limited capacity anyway. And so that's something to consider. I want to echo Ashley Schaefer's comment about like hiring processes, like the people who get hired for projects and jobs, having a background, having background in like in accessibility or like being disabled, that is really important. Another couple things for COBAAC, I think that it would be an important goal to work to like recruit more disabled people for COBAAC. I think that there's like a mix of like, content experts and context experts, right? There's like non-disabled people who have expertise or experience in one way or another, and then there's like disabled people. But there's such a wide range of what disability looks like. Like my disability is very different than Ashley Schaefer's disability, but we can share some common experiences around being disabled by our society and by our community. But they're very different And so it's not, you know, not having like a diversity of like disabled people represented, it leaves things out. And we're also, just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I'm an expert on every type, you know, accessibility need that anyone would have. And even like people with epilepsy, there's tons I don't know, of course, like this is true for everybody. These are like personal experiences that people have. So yeah, it's there's a lot to do there, but I think that that would be a great priority for COBAAC. I don't know who, you know, the applicants are that we got, and you know, I do. I love like I love everybody on COBAAC. I really do. I think everybody has such a fantastic, fantastic perspective to add, and I love the care and the work that they do in the community for accessibility and like being here and caring. So, you know, not that I don't want like non-disabled people on COBAAC, but you know, it would be good to have more, and doing specific outreach to do that, to recruit, would be fantastic. So those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Corey.
Corey, I just wanted to echo Corey. So Ashley Money here. This is exactly what I grapple with personally, is like, you know, obviously I'm an ally of, you know, those who experience disabilities, and want to advocate for things that help, you know, further, you know, making our community more accessible, but at the same time recognizing that I am not actually speaking from that community. And so this is something that I grapple with. So I really appreciate, you know, you mentioning that. And I totally agree. I think that we need to have more of that sort of diversity on our own committee too.
I agree as well. And also going back to what you were saying about like capacity to work on the bigger projects and things, and Ashley, you know, both of you on kind of how we do that. I think Sharisa and I had talked about, you know, having an opportunity like a workshop with the engineers or something, where we go out to site and we do a site visit at the beginning, and then they bring stuff to us at the meetings, and all of that. But I do agree, Corey, that like that could get really overwhelming and time consuming, and also is probably work that should be paid for. And so I wonder if, you know, the way we could participate is come up with a process to kind of submit to the city, and like, this is what we think that the engineers should have to go through and designers to put things through. Like, you know, I think that's reasonable for us to be like, hey, this is what this process should look like. What do you think about it? And whether or not they do something with it, like, I think it's a step at least. And yeah, I think it'd probably be good for us to talk through it. And then also, you know, possibly have Rory in there for his feedback and everything. I think he would be useful in that conversation. So maybe that's a way we could go.
Thank you, Ashley. Anna, I see you have your hand raised.
Go ahead. Thanks, Anna here. I love this feedback, and a couple things just come to mind. I think to a couple points. One is elevating recommendations. So I'm going through this process a little bit with the Human Rights and Equity Commission right now of creating like a one-pager of like very clearly, what is the cycle of a recommendation to council? What does that look like? Who does that go to first? What is kind of the checks and balances, or like the due diligence that staff, so Sharisa and Lisa and myself, need to do if you all are elevating, or Human Rights and Equity Commission is elevating an idea of like, this is an area of interest, we'd like to create a priority around this or elevate a recommendation, then that kind of triggers this process to happen where we're information gathering, we're working with the departments that would be impacted to get the right information to the group, to make sure that the next meeting has the right agenda items so that everybody has information, that we're sharing the information with them in an appropriate time. And then there's like a draft memo template and everything of who on the committee would fill that out in partnership with staff, and kind of just really outlining that process. So Sharisa and Lisa, I can work with both of you to maybe create something that would fit for this group moving forward, just so we have that process outlined. And then the other thing is My team is in the process of developing an equity framework tool or a lens, and it really is meant to be used early in the process of policy development or decision-making processes to identify what questions are you asking yourself, who's going to be impacted by this, who did you reach out to from that community to gain feedback on this, to really make it formalized. And that's going to be expected of everybody to participate if you're bringing something before council for consideration. So I also think that's an area of opportunity, and would love to talk more about what it would look like to bring that to this group, to gain your feedback, and to potentially do some additional outreach in partnership with you all in community on that framework specifically. And we're very, very much in the research phase right now. So I'll stop there, but I just see those as a couple areas, just hearing both, everybody talk on
that. That's so great to hear, and it's really exciting work. And I was just going to add that, yeah, I think both of those things would be exceptionally helpful to Kobach. I know I won't be here, but I think one of the things I've struggled with is what is the process where we can, give a recommendation. I think, and then the other thing to your question, Sharisa, sorry. When it comes to what does success look like, I think about having the right balance between receiving information and giving our perspective. And I think I felt like I've received a lot of information that has been really great on it, and I've learned a lot, but I haven't always felt like the timing has worked out to give our perspective. And I think part of that in an ideal world is a project that really wants our insight and feedback would come to us early on and give us a lot of time to deliberate, because we only meet monthly. So if I think about it, if we meet monthly or 1 month and we get information about a particular project, we'll need another, we'll digest that information over the month. We won't really be able to talk about it and come to, ideas about what we want to recommend until the next month. And then what's the process from there to get that feedback out? So I think just making, that's not always, possible. Things move more quickly than that. But if the goal is to, really have adequate consultation that doesn't expect, volunteers on this committee to build in additional time, then I think the adaptation has to happen on the other end, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that, Kelsey. That's really helpful. I have my hand raised and I'll follow up on that in a second, but I know Nick and I had a conversation about how do we get the work done. And I think I've spoken with several of you about that in our one-on-one discussions. And one of the ideas that at least Nick and I talked about was, do we need to have more frequent meetings? Maybe we need subcommittees. How do we get this work done? But again, that's that balance, right? With how much capacity do folks have? So I would be curious, if any of you have thoughts on, do we have subcommittees to get that work done? You don't have to let anybody know today or respond to that right now. I mean, if you do, that would be lovely. But if not, certainly send me an email or a message and let me know what your thoughts would be on shifting. I know that that's a structure that HREC is using. They've got a lot of work to do. And as I listened to their meeting last night, a lot around the rules and the guidance and how are they going to work together that I thought was similar here. But again, that capacity component is certainly important. So maybe before I give some insight to the work that Anna and I, along with our colleagues, Avi, have been doing, it would be helpful for the disability representation discussion. I'll pause there and see if there were any thoughts on, whether subcommittees or some extended meetings might be a possible tool.
I think it would be a possible tool. I think I I don't always have limited capacity, just sometimes. And it has been the last 6 months. And I don't know how long that's going to last, but also when we have more people on the committee, our capacity will expand, obviously. And, when there's, more folks to share in the work, the more work can get done. So I think it's like a doable thing. I don't think it's like, this is all the time we have and we have all this important work to do. But, and I also don't think, all this work needs to be, limited to just Kobach. Obviously, I would hope that the city is like incorporating, I don't know, other people, like disabled people, like as participants in processes, I guess. But yeah, I think it's possible if we like increase our membership and it changes. Things change capacity wise.
Thank you, Corey.
Barb, sometimes you make this face at me like you're like, what the hell is she talking about?
No. What are you talking about? Then continuing on to what would that look like?
Yeah.
No, at that moment, my brain was kind of thinking, ooh, do we need to have a spot for a disability advocate on our affordable housing committee? Should we have that
And
was
on all the other committees? I mean,
yes.
affordable housing and like, BDAB, all the ones. That would be great, but that's a capacity issue. Asking somebody to do that would be ideal. But yeah, thanks. I was just giving you a hard time. But...
Of course, yeah, no worries. Of course.
Yeah, I think what's
go ahead, I'm sorry,
interesting about the subcommittees is that since we are in a public forum here, is that the subcommittees, I'm not sure if they can be more individualized to share more experiences. That is it doesn't, that people feel more comfortable sharing as well. So that's just something to think about too, as far as these subcommittees.
And if I can add on then, maybe not so much as far as subcommittees, but I certainly heard a lot of feedback today and during some of the discussions that I had with y'all about the value of representation. So I do want to highlight and just before I get too far down the road, know that this will come back to Kobach for feedback before anything comes of it. But the Kobach charter currently says at least 51% of the folks serving on Kobach should be people with disabilities. So there's a question that sits out there: how do we get at that, right? How do we know? How do we collect that information? What does that look like? So Anna, myself, our colleague Zavi from our communications department are having some discussions around creating an optional demographic tool that would allow folks to choose if they wanted to. In some way to identify, to explain how they identify. We're looking at open-ended questions, hopefully creating some space for folks to feel comfortable describing how they experience the world in their own words. But that is something that we're doing some work on. And again, would come back to Kobach and to HREC for feedback before we put that kind of out there as part of the larger commission council application process.
Sharisa, I was just going to add that the reason we're thinking about an optional demographics questionnaire is because it is not legal to ask someone, do you have a disability and what is your disability? And so the charter says that 51% of members should experience a disability themselves, but it's illegal to ask. So, we're trying to figure out a middle ground. I was thinking that if we came up with that questionnaire, obviously it would be optional for anyone. We're not talking about, requiring anyone, but I was thinking that once we got that questionnaire, we could offer it to all of you who are already on the committee to give us an idea of where do we stand now with folks if they're experiencing a disability, and what sort of disability. And then a separate comment that I wanted to make is I think, because the charter right now says 51% should be people with a disability, I think. I personally think that a caretaker for someone could be their feedback might be just as valuable as the person. Now, Ashley's saying no. Okay, thank you, Ashley. I will stop talking about that.
No worries, Barb. I appreciate you throwing those questions out there, and that vulnerability, and also listening when someone says no. But yeah, I think that's kind of a big controversial thing, is like whether or not parents with children with disabilities and caretakers and things, whether or not, they can claim disability. And the reality is it's very different. And we really want to make sure we're valuing the personal lived experience, but also validating that like they do experience disability, especially parents with kids with disability. Like it's very different, but like super valid, and like they experience their own, things with it. What was I was going to say something else. I forgot what we were talking about before that. Crap. What were you saying before that?
We were having some discussion about the demographics. Yeah. Asking demographic questions.
So when I do interviews, because I also am like cautious not to flat out ask people about their disability, but I tend to ask them like what their experience has been with disabilities. So not asking them like specifically, because that could be anyone. That could be a caretaker, that could be a parent, that could be a friend, that could be anything. What kinds of, what have you experienced within disability? And so then they have the option to self-identify, or, talk about, the things that they've worked with, and, someone could bring up COBAAC, that kind of thing. So those kind of vague questions, just to understand, what kind of experiences and what they've been exposed to, I think can help us to kind of narrow that. But also wondering that, like, is it even legal for the charter to say to like, that it has to be people with disabilities? Like if it's illegal to ask people if they have disabilities, that just seems kind of weird and gray.
I think there may be some real value in taking a deeper look at the entire charter, perhaps with some support from our legal team.
And also I was going to say, is it okay when we're like putting out, this information to the community, like, asking for people to apply? Is it okay for us to be like, hey, we're looking for people with disabilities to apply for this? And, not necessarily saying we don't want people without disabilities, but being very explicit that like, we're looking for people with these experiences, and hope that draws them in.
Anna, that raised a question for me. I know that HREC is having a discussion about membership and those kinds of things. How are y'all approaching the value of lived experience on that commission?
So the way that I weave that in is through the questions that I'm asking in the application, the type of outreach. So where am I going in communities? So if I'm going directly to an organization that works and serves folks living with disabilities, I'm going to prioritize engaging them first and early in the process, and trying to reduce as many barriers as possible. So even asking them, do you have anybody that you would like to nominate? We're really focused on getting some folks with lived experience. And so that kind of starts to narrow that down. And then through the application process, really weighting those questions creating that criteria with a point system that is ultimately going to get us the outcome that we're looking for, which is folks who live with disabilities serving on COBAAC. So that question is going to be worth more points depending on their response, which is very much aligned with what you were saying, Ashley, of like, talk about your experience working or living in community and providing services or working with, or what is that experience like? Because that's how you pull that information out. And you get to that lived experience piece. And then that, response is we're taking that into stronger consideration than, something like, do you live in the city of Bend? One thing, so thinking about how we're doing that, the questions that we're asking in the interview process. But really for me, it's about, I'm a fan of doing like a level of gaps analysis. So again, back to that demographic piece, if we can pull that information and say, we really don't have anyone who identifies as blank. We can target our outreach to really say, we want to engage this group, and how do we go through that process? And again, reducing those barriers so that like calling me or Sharisa or Lisa, and I just ask you the questions on the application over the phone, and you answer them, and I'm filling it out for you. You can mail it in, you can do it online, you can. So really looking at all of the ways that folks can even like actually apply, and is that a barrier? So thinking through those pieces, that it is a broader question of, if we can't ask certain questions, how do we get that outcome anyways? Legally sound, legally sound way. So I think there's a lot of work and conversation. We're in the very beginning stages of identifying like, what does that world look like from, okay, we need to do a vacancy notice, but let's already go through that analysis piece to see who's missing, whose voice is not here, who do we really want to prioritize, and then that kind of informs the rest of the process and the recommendation to Eric for appointments. So.
And Anna, do you know the question about, can we specifically say in kind of a notice that we are, it's our accessibility committee, and so we are looking for folks with a disability? We can say that, can't we?
We can, I think, I'm not going to, I think the answer is yes, but I don't want to be on the record. I can already feel like the energy of Mary and Ian. So I think we should double check.
No, we can, Barb. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. I felt like we could be like, we're prioritizing this as this is the focus of this committee. We will be prioritizing applicants with lived experience. So.
Okay, good.
And to build on Anna's comments, that the value of being able to take a step back and do that gaps analysis is part of the reason for the request to Eric to modify the language in the charter that required essentially the vacancy notices be posted in February and appointments be in April, so that, as we're looking at whether or not a demographic questionnaire or other tools are possible, that we can then use that information to be thoughtful in building COBAAC membership or HREC membership, or even more broadly, other committee and commission membership moving forward. So I thought I would pass that along to the group.
Awesome. Okay. Is there anything else anyone wants to mention on that? And my thoughts are, as far as the goals of the committee, if there's anyone on the committee that haven't shared any goals, is maybe to think about that prior to our February meeting and come up with a list of maybe your top 5 goals and what you see, where you see COBAAC heading as well, and just we can chat about that next time as well.
Is there any way that we could start like a Google Doc, like a live document to kind of list out goals? Because if there's things that we're going to be coming up with, I think it'd be really helpful to have a visual. At least it would be for me. I tend to forget things immediately. So I think it would just be nice to also, work on it collectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I can set something up. We'll work with Lisa and Sharisa to set that up.
Nick, it does look like Anna has her hand raised. I wonder if she's got some comments to share on that question.
My only question is, because this advisory committee is our city manager's advisory committee, I'm just wondering, Teresa, maybe just double checking with Mary and Ian about public meetings law and serial deliberation. And can we, because we'll have more than a quorum of individuals weighing in on content. I just don't know if there's a
I can address that. So I think as long as you're putting a document out and it's a brainstorm and you're just putting information there, that's fine. Yes, you do not want to be like passing value judgments on somebody's comment, or I like this or I don't, because then that becomes a serial meeting and violates public meeting law. So I think there's a way to handle it and just put some disclaimers to say this is a brainstorming document to capture ideas, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Eric, I wonder, and Anna, I'm going to borrow from what I saw in HREC, but I wonder if it would be meaningful for us to kind of create some framework around that and email it out to COBAAC so that they could know what the options look like and what will work and what will not. And we send that perhaps in advance of the February meeting. What would you think of something like that? Sorry, Eric, any thoughts on it?
Oh,
sorry.
I thought that was to Anna.
Maybe I realized that wasn't really clear, but I'm
Oh,
borrowing.
no.
Anna,
Yeah, that's fine. We can figure that out. That's an easy thing to figure out. And you can send out a link and say, please access this document and share your thoughts here. So that would be easy.
Great. So I think I'm hearing an action item then for Lisa and I to do a little bit more research and get clear around what's possible. Ashley Schaefer, to your point, and coordinate with Eric, and then maybe get that information out to the group before the next meeting.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on and move on to item number 7, which is Accessibility and Equity Manager update. Teresa, back to you.
Thank you. First, I just want to share a whole lot of gratitude to folks. I think first and foremost, Lisa, it's been about 6 weeks since we all got together, and I've had an opportunity over that time to become acutely aware of the work that she's been doing. So I just want to thank Lisa. Also want to thank Nick. Nick and I have been in touch rather a bit since our last meeting, and you know, it's very exciting to think about the direction that COBAAC is going, but I think it also comes with a little bit of weight, knowing that there's plenty of work to do. So I want to thank Nick. And then certainly Eric. Eric has been really supportive as we've been kind of trying to navigate, you know, what does the future of COBAAC look like? And then last but not least, before I get to the rest of everybody, Anna, it's been really great to start to have those conversations about collaboration between COBAAC and HREC and the larger DEIA work that we're doing. And then I certainly want to thank Barb and all of the COBAAC members. It's been great to learn a little bit more about you, and frankly, for all of you to be candid as we've had those one-on-one discussions about the things that have been working and maybe some things that haven't. So I'll start with that, with some gratitude to all of you for engaging with me and being supportive in the last 2 months as we prep for what's coming. I did want to highlight kind of a couple of themes just that are kind of swirling in my mind based on the conversations that I had with folks. I'm curious if anybody has thoughts about meeting times. We currently meet, as you know, from 1 until 2:30. And I'm curious to know if anybody has thoughts about maybe shifting that meeting time. And then the other thing that I'm curious about, and I did mention with all of you, was the monthly time commitment we outline in the charter. It says 4 hours a month. So curious if anybody has thoughts about those. Again, you don't have to answer those questions right now, but in this update wanted to let you know that those are things that I'm thinking about. So maybe I'll pause for a minute before I go on if anybody does have comments they want to share about meeting time or time commitments. All right.
Actually, Bodhi, I don't have any issue. I mean, this is like burned into my calendar. So, meeting at this time, like that's no issue at all, at least for me. And I think, as far as additional, meetings or additional time, like I think if we wanted to have, fulfill that, 4-hour time commitment, having another meeting or allocating more time for that wouldn't be an issue. I think anything above and beyond that, as we're talking about more of the subcommittees and stuff like that, that might be more of a challenge. But hopefully as we bring more folks on board, we'll be able to share the opportunities of some of these, other projects and additional work with other folks.
Thank you for that feedback. Any other thoughts? All right, if you do think of some, feel free to call me, email, text, whatever works for you. I would love that feedback. As far as things that I've been working on, I've already highlighted that Anna, Zavi, and I have been working around demographics. You'll see some of that coming back to this group, I think, in the near future. Also wanted to let you know, and Barb already knows this, that there was a presentation to COCA earlier this month at an opportunity to meet with that group. And they've actually reached out asking Lisa and I to at some point in the future come back and talk a little bit about accessible pedestrian signals. So we'll certainly keep this group updated as we move forward with discussions around that. Another project that I wanted to let y'all know about that is popping up on my radar is that the city is doing a website kind of redesign project. And throughout that discussion, we've been highlighting the value of getting feedback from this group in terms of what does the user experience look like. So look for more information about that coming your way. Still not entirely clear on the timeline, but I have been in contact with Jacob Riggle here at the city, who's working on the project charter. And so it's very much on his radar that your feedback is going to be important to the success of that project. And then I just wanted to recognize we've talked a lot about a capacity. I know that what I'm about to say is, I don't know if you've got capacity to do this, but I did want to encourage you to consider attending city council meetings, future COCA meetings, and definitely HREC. As I'm sitting back and listening, there are a lot of things kind of bubbling up that I think would be of interest to this group as we're talking about goals and projects that we might want to work on. So just wanted to encourage you to attend as your schedules allow those meetings. And I think with that, that's the end of the update that I've got. Does anybody have any questions or comments or feedback for me? Lisa?
Really quickly, I just wanted to share, Teresa, that I heard through the grapevine from some folks on COCA that you did an absolutely amazing job. So they loved having the city at that meeting. I don't know the last time, I know Rory goes and, folks do go, but it sounded like you did an absolutely awesome job. So great job.
I would like to thank Teresa and Anna for their open communication to each and every one of us, and always listening and taking into consideration the personal views of everybody. Thank you to both.
Thank you
for that. All right.
I agree. It's an exciting time to be on COBAAC. It's always an exciting time to be on COBAAC, but it feels good. I really do feel that way. I just love COBAAC. I've always had learned so much, and so many fantastic people. Anyway, yeah. So thank you very much. Thanks to everybody for all the changes that are happening in the city. I'm very excited about it. And Barb, City Council, you guys are killing it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on with our next agenda item, which is the agenda for this setting for the February meeting. One item that we're
Nick, sorry to interrupt, but I do think that Eric has got some comments to share with the group.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words. I was at the last meeting, and I'm going to be at more meetings, and I want to just kind of emphasize the need for the city manager's office to connect, kind of going along alongside this vision that Sharissa talked about, and that many of you kind of gave feedback. We really want to think beyond just projects when we talk about accessibility. That is important. We want to talk about people, and we want to talk about policy. And ultimately what all that means is like, let's build a culture that is just invasive in how we just live and breathe in this city and in this as an organization and in this community, that we are a welcoming city, and that we just we want to learn from the mistakes of the past and how other cities have done it. And we want to be a standout. We want to be a leader, a city that others look to. And so I really want to think big and want us to think really holistically about this work. And that's part of why we've kind of been a little bit heads down over the last year, just getting the staff in place, getting the organizational structure in place so that we can deliver on those big dreams. And so it is an exciting time, and we need your help to do this work. But we can't just say, please do more, do more, do more. I think Corey and others brought up the need, and Ashley too, about stipends or trying to lower barriers. So we can't just be asking and taking without also understanding what that means to, especially if we are really truly trying to get more inclusive and different voices involved. So we are looking at those things, and those are really important. And so it's all of the things, right? That's really the main message that we're trying to deliver. We're not going to always get it right. Hold us accountable and let us know how we can do better. And just we want a partnership. We want to be able to learn, and we also want. There's some great things that are happening too that we need your help to share with the community too. So it is definitely two-way. Just myself or Stephanie Betteridge from the city manager's office will be at one of these meetings to make sure that we are providing that connectivity. Just wanted to say that, and then see if you had any questions. One point, or an offer, I guess. So I know there's some new members coming on board here pretty soon. I'm definitely willing to, and I've done this with other boards and committees, spend 10-15 minutes just talking about how boards and committees kind of feed into council goals, and how the goals feed into the work that we do and the how we do it, kind of both the how and the what, and kind of an overview of the council goals as well. If that would be helpful, I know that your next agenda item is to help formulate future agenda topics. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm always willing to help create that connectivity, maybe starting with the big picture and then other future agenda items. If you're curious about something that you think has some tie-in with the work that you're doing, I'm happy to make a presentation or get staff to help. So, and then any questions for me? Anything that I said that you wanted a question or comment on?
I just want to say thank you for that culture shift of you or somebody else from the manager's office being here. It's really makes a big difference. So appreciate it.
Yes, happy to. All right, I'll turn it back over to you, Ned.
Okay. We'll go quickly through our agenda setting for February. We'll just talk about first is discuss.
Nick,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to give Barb a moment to give any updates she might have.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I
Thank you.
don't know if I need to go specifically through the list here, the numbers, but I apologize for that. So yeah, council member liaison Barbara Campbell.
No apology necessary, Nick. Thank you. Mostly just thanks, and again, my excitement that we really are turning the corner and bright new day for Kobach in the future. One comment I would make is I hate writing rules. I hate looking at the charter and updating the charter. I am someone, I just want to get to work. I don't want, I'm the horse at the starting gate, just fighting against that gate. Just let me go. But I am also the one that looked at the charter for this group and called Eric King and said, I think we need to do some work on that charter. This one has not been looked at for heaven only knows how long. And we can only appoint in April. Where did that come from? So, I just appreciate you. So if you're like me, I apologize that you're, in this situation at this point in time. And I thank you for doing it. And, I'm always going to be the one, advocating for, okay, it's good enough. We can move on now, and not just micro analyzing every little thing and how is the group going to run. And, I very much would just like to get us coordinated with the city council and the council goals. I very much agree that if we can get coordinated with human rights and equity and with COCA, that then we can, really start to get work done and see changes to our community like you've already been doing for so many years for so many of you. And then the last thing I will say to Ashley and to Dave, thank you so much. Thank you for staying on. And I completely understand if you're moving on, if you're not sure you're going to be here for your whole term, that's okay. We'll love to have you for just as many minutes as you can be here, just as many days, and appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Barb? All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our agenda items here. So we have a thing to discuss transportation project accessibility best practices, and this is going to be presented by Sinclair Burr, who's the principal engineer at the City of Bend's EIPD department. So I'd like, can someone make a motion to vote on this agenda item?
Ashley Moni, I'll make a motion to add this agenda item to our next meeting.
Do we have a second?
Can I ask a question? Can you repeat what he's going to present, or they? Yeah, because I don't want to keep going down the path where people just come and present things to us that are projects that are already complete. I'm honestly tired of it, and like it wastes our time, just to be completely honest. So if we could discuss a little more, like if there could be some clarification on what's going on, because my brain just like zapped out for a second when you're describing that.
Sure. Yeah, so it sounds like it's to go over the transportation project accessibility best practices. So Lisa or Sharissa, do you have additional information on that?
I do, Nick. Ashley, to your point, this is a preemptive discussion. They have got some transportation projects coming, and they're trying to identify what accessibility best practices look like before we get to the final phases. So Sinclair is coming to the group to talk about some situations, trails are involved, where it would be helpful to get feedback from folks with lived experiences before we get down the path of making final decisions.
Okay, great. And yeah, thanks for bearing with me. My mind kind of goes blank sometimes.
This is Corey Sparks. I'll second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor for that discussion?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we will be talking about transportation project accessibility best practices next week and having an open forum on that. So that sounds great. And thank you, Sharissa and Lisa, for setting that up. Going on to our next item, we'll also be having a follow-up on the fair housing assessment that a few of us on COBAAC participated in. And so Rachel Baker will be attending next February, or this next meeting in February as well. Any other items to add for the agenda at this time? Okay. All right, so our next COBAAC meeting is on February 24th, 2022. It'll also be from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Just please let us know if you are unable to attend the meeting, and you can contact the accessibility at bendoregon.gov or call the number on the agenda or email as well. So any other things before we wrap up here?
I just want to say thank you, everybody. That was like I thought that was a really great discussion that we had today.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm excited about the work the group's going to be doing and the new members coming on here, hopefully in the next month, and where we go from there. I also thank you, Anna, Sharissa, and Eric, and Lisa for all you guys, what you're doing and supporting me through this transition phase and patience with me as well. So thank you all for attending today, and we'll move to adjourn our COBAAC meeting this Thursday at 2:29 p.m., 1 minute to spare. And so any approvals, motions to approve?
This is Corey. I'll move to approve.
I thought we were going to stay here for a while.
Second.
This is Kelsey. I'll second that.
Perfect. All right. I will take it that everyone will approve that and that there'll be no objections.
Kelsey's last official COBAAC.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Oh, and I
Thanks,
guess
Kelsey.
Dave Camps as well. We'll miss you guys.
Kelsey, come back for be public sometime.
I'll be around. Yeah.
Great.
Well, thanks for everything, guys. It's
Bye,
been a-
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
As all the windows close.
Yep.
Thanks, Nick. Good job.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You've been a great support, Nick.
Thank you.
You've been my hero when we
Oh.
didn't have people here. So
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I feel a little bit anxious about running the meetings, but I think
you do great.
it's going okay.
One thing I am going to check on, Nick, just so you know, is whether or not we need to vote on future agenda items.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things procedurally I want to do some research on. So I'll get in touch with you once I'm able to connect with our legal counsel to understand, what do we have to vote on and what can we just talk about? So
Thank
stay
you.
tuned
Yes.
on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All
that
right.
makes sense.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Thanks so much, Nick. Talk to you
Thanks.
later.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thanks,
thank you guys.
Lisa.
Bye.
See you later. Good job.
Thanks. I totally forgot the last thing. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, are you guys staying? But thank you. Yeah. I'll
Hang
get
on,
better.
hang on.
I'll get better.
Hang on.